We have breaking news. President Trump has just arrived at one of the most lavish places in the entire world, the Palace of Versailles in France. Palace, which was commissioned by King Louis VIII in 1623, is 12 miles southwest of Paris. By the way, if that palace were built today, it would cost as much as a whopping $300 billion. Once the president wraps up his tour at Versailles, that will be the end of his time in France. He will head to the airport, jump on Air Force One, and be back at the White House about 8 hours later. And as we await the president's departure from France, if he stops to speak to reporters, as he so often does, we're going to take that live. And now, something that is sending shivers up the spine at the White House back here in Washington. Someone leaked tapes from the Situation Room. That room, developed at the White House more than 64 years ago on the order of President John F. Kennedy, is supposed to be the most secure, the most secretive room in the White House. So how is it that audio has been leaked from it? Well, an Axios report states that a source in the Trump administration is afraid that some of their conversations in one of the Situation Rooms was leaked. If this is true, this would be one of the biggest breaches of security in history. We're going to have more on that in just a moment. And we're still waiting for the details of the memorandum of understanding between the United States and Iran, but today the president gave us this inkling.
This agreement now provides Iran with a historic opportunity. If they follow the path of cooperation we'll have open for them, their country will have a chance to survive.
More on that in just a moment. I'm Greta Van Susteren. This is The Record. Today, in addition to President Trump telling us that the memorandum of understanding gives Iran a chance to survive, the president also said this.
On Sunday, we reached an agreement with Iran that achieves everything we set out to accomplish, everything and much more. Ending the current conflict, reopening the Strait of Hormuz, and preventing Iran from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon. That's what it was all about. And it's a memorandum of understanding. If it doesn't get done in 60 days, that's all right. We go back to bombing.
But Iran is now President Trump's only concern. He has another big problem on his hands. Axios is reporting that according to a source in the Trump administration, and you know how I feel about anonymous sources, I hate them, but Axios is reporting that top White House officials believe New York Times reporters Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan obtained audio recordings from Situation Room meetings for their new book that will be released later this month. The book is titled Regime Change Inside the Imperial Presidency of Donald Trump. According to the anonymous administration source, the book has several verbatim accounts of Situation Room meetings about the war with Iran and about the story that never goes away. Yes, the Epstein files. Independent recording devices in any Situation Room is forbidden. So if this report is accurate, this would be a breach of security at its highest level, a crime. Former White House Chief of Staff and former member of Congress from North Carolina, Mark Meadows, joins me. Nice to talk to you. And just to give some background, since you spent so much time in the White House, can you tell me how many Situation Rooms there are? Because most people have not even been in the White House.
Yeah, so actually the Situation Room, as they refer to it, is a couple of rooms, but certainly two areas where you can have private meetings, secure meetings, as you were talking about. But it is managed, and there are to be no electronics, no recordings of those, and yet occasionally things do get leaked out. Generally, those are not recordings. Those are staffers that decide that they have the liberty to talk. And I want to emphasize Susie Wiles, and as chief for Donald Trump in this term, has done an unbelievable job of making sure that leaks don't get out, and has had a close hold on it. So this reporting is certainly troubling.
Well, when you walk into the White House, even into the areas that's not the Situation Room, you have to put your telephone, your iPhone, or whatever phone you have into a little cubby hole. So, you know, so this recordings must be official White House recordings, not like someone brought a recording device into the Situation Room, I don't think.
Well, I think that it's more probable if there's actually recordings that somebody actually did bring it in. You're allowed, most of the staffers do check their little cubby hole, as you mentioned, as you walk in off of what they call West at Zec. There's these cubby holes, and you put it there. But there are a lot of devices, both iPhones and certainly iWatches. And when you come into the Situation Room and you're having a meeting, there's somebody there saying, hey, we need to make sure that all electronic devices are put up. So it would have had to have been intentional, with one exception. Perhaps on some of these things, there can be a secure communication that comes in the Situation Room from another location. And sometimes those staffers that set up those particular communications are not supervised quite as closely as perhaps right there in the Situation Room. And while this is extremely concerning, I would think that any long narrative of a video or an audio probably doesn't exist as much as it is perhaps copious notes that have been taken to be given to Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman.
But what goes on here? I mean, you've got war planning. You've got a president talking to his generals in Afghanistan or Iraq or the CIA over at Lang. I mean, you've got all these very secretive, important things, the strategy things that we don't want to get on. I mean, stuff about Epstein. I mean, I don't know what that is, but at worst, that's embarrassing. But supposedly stuff about Iran slipped out.
Yeah, and it would certainly not only not be appropriate, but in some cases against the law for them to share those kinds of things. And yet we find a lot of times great liberties are taken by staffers who believe that they're going to get their moment in history. And again, it's why Susie Wiles and her team have done such a good job of bringing them together and keeping a smaller group of people that discuss these things. But anytime that you have something as much as Iran and those kinds of discussions, you'll bring in staffers and multiple staffers, and so sometimes in the coming and going, those protocols perhaps get overlooked a little bit, mainly because you start trusting the people that are around you, and yet I'll take a grain of cautiousness as it relates to tapes that perhaps are out there.
Is this, President Trump very well, everybody in Washington does, he's so transparent, everybody's known him for years, but you work so close with him. Is this going to light his hair on fire, that something inside whether it's tapes or conversation or whatever it is that slipped out of the Situation Room, is this going to enrage him?
Well, he obviously doesn't like leaks, and yet they are a common problem, not just with this administration, but with the Biden administration and others. And that's why Susie has done such a good job of trying to pull these people together. But yeah, does he get upset about it? Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there were times where I know when I was chief, all of a sudden we're reading about a speech that was in draft form that's been leaked out prior to that. And part of that is because you got an approval process going on, multiple eyes that are seeing a particular document, and yet the smaller that group, the less likely it is to leak. But I also know that they probably have their suspects already, and Susie's on the job, certainly trying to track this down if it's legitimate.
All right, I'm a terrible offender when it comes to pocket dialing. President Trump walks around with his iPhone all the time. Everybody in town has got his cell phone number. I mean, as I said, he's so transparent. Is there anyone that even checks to see if he's pocket dialing when he goes into these rooms himself? Because he is reaching out to everybody all the time.
Well, he does, and that's one of the things that we love about this president is that so many people have access to him, and yet it's also something that he's keenly aware of. I can tell you that in the first administration, when he would have his cell phone, and we were discussing something that could be breached, he would make sure that the cell phone was not in the room. And so I don't see this as a pocket dial kind of thing with the president as much as I do is something that was deliberate. And obviously, if they're sharing with, New York Times reporters for a book, it's someone who, loves the fact that they're going to be able to say, I was the source of that particular bit of information.
Well, if I never pocket dial you, you're probably the only one in Washington. I have not pocket dialed. As I said, I'm a terrible offender, and everyone always tells me it's embarrassing and bad. Anyway, Mark Meadows, thank you, sir.
Great to be with you. Take care.
Coming up, gut-wrenching statements by family members of a serial killer's victims. That when the record continues.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all 3 main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. If you or a loved one has mesothelioma or any other asbestos-related cancer, call now. Asbestos manufacturers sold deadly asbestos materials to thousands of companies, putting workers at risk. An estimated $30 billion in court-ordered trusts have been set aside to pay out claims to asbestos victims. You may be entitled to a portion of these funds and receive compensation without filing a lawsuit or ever going to court. For your free legal consultation, call 1-800-306-1979. That's 1-800-306-1979.
Luigi Mangione, he's back in court. Mangione is accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The judge presiding over Mangione's case says Mangione will argue a psychiatric defense in his New York State murder trial. Mangione's lawyers told the judge that they plan to show that their client killed the United Healthcare CEO while suffering from a, quote, extreme emotional disturbance at the time of the occurrence. The judge also said he will unseal records of the closed-door hearing held earlier this month. Mangione's lawyers opposed that release of the transcript and other materials relating to his psychiatric defense. The lawyers insist that unsealing of the transcript from the state court hearing will harm Mangione's other trial in federal court. Mangione's New York State trial begins September 8th. His trial in federal court is scheduled for January 5, 2027. Criminal defense attorney Ken Belkin joins me. Nice to talk to you, Ken. And having been a defense attorney myself, I imagine if you and I were sitting in a bar talking, we might say that this is sort of a Hail Mary pass from his lawyers, but something we would never say in court.
Yeah, it's a very tough defense for the defense to mount. It does not have a very high historical success rate. But the key to it here is it's not your typical insanity defense. It's a defense that is, set by statute in the state of New York. And what needs to be established is that, one, he was acting under the influence of an extreme emotional disturbance that was so extreme it caused him to lose self-control and commit this crime. And that this extreme emotional disturbance has to be considered reasonable from his vantage point. Now, I think the major hurdle that's going to be nearly impossible to overcome is that he lacked self-control. There's a lot of evidence that shows a meticulous amount of planning went into the commission of this crime.
Well, usually when you think of this, and I realize it's a particular New York statute, but usually it's something that knocks down a case from a first-degree murder to like a second-degree murder. It's a act with great passion. It's you walk into the bedroom and you discover your spouse in bed with someone, and all of a sudden you blow up and you kill the person that's sitting there in the bed. But as you noted, that the problem here is that it wasn't like spontaneous. When the person walks into the bedroom and sees his or her spouse, is that you don't bring along, you don't plan with a gun, you don't have a backpack, you don't track the person for a long time. I mean, it really is explosive at the moment and unanticipated. The planning here is what I think makes this case so profoundly difficult for the defense attorney.
Yeah, as you said, this is a heat of passion defense, typical amongst, a cheating spouse scenario. Someone walks into the bedroom. Well, you know what someone doesn't walk into the bedroom with? A manifesto about his cheating spouse. And Luigi Mangione had a manifesto, allegedly, about why he was committing this crime. He also allegedly created his own silencer to suppress the sound of the gunshot. So it's a very tough defense for them to establish. And the key here is, if the jury buys it, it could mean the difference between a sentence in the range of 25 to life to a sentence that maxes out at 25 years.
All right, I don't know the New York law, so help me on this, is that why didn't he raise the insanity defense? Here in Washington, you'd have to say that you couldn't appreciate the wrongfulness of your conduct. You didn't know it was wrong to do, basically. Under New York law, why wasn't insanity, which would, if you're not guilty by reason of insanity, you completely walk away and you put him in a mental hospital. But what's the difference between what they're raising and insanity?
So with a typical insanity defense, the first prong of it is that you have to prove that the defendant has some sort of mental health disease or defect. So you really have to prove that he has a diagnosed mental health condition. I haven't seen any evidence so far that he has a diagnosed mental health condition. And the second part of it is that the mental health condition, made it impossible for the defendant to appreciate the difference between right and wrong when they committed the crime. Again, the amount of planning that went into this shows that he understood the difference between right and wrong, because he went to great lengths to conceal. And when he went on the run, he went to great lengths to conceal his whereabouts, to conceal his identity. He took a lot of, he allegedly stayed at a hostel under an assumed name in New York, and he took a bike route where there was so a lack of surveillance cameras on that route. So it seems to me he truly knew the difference between right or wrong when he allegedly committed the crime. And, it's a problem. I don't think he can establish that. And it's not clear that he has a diagnosed mental health disease or defect.
Well, we used to call these cases, when they didn't look too good for the defense attorney, we used to call them slow pleas, because you sit there and watch the case just unfold, and the outcome seems rather inevitable. But we don't know. Anyway, Ken Belkin, thank you.
Thank you, Greta. Thanks for having me.
Where is a missing personal trainer? She has vanished into thin air. And last week in Lexington, South Carolina, a personal trainer vanished after leaving a Planet Fitness gym. Authorities say Elena Catherine Moore was seen walking towards a wooded area after leaving the gym. Authorities have searched the wooded area, but they found no trace of Moore. Police are calling her disappearance, quote, out of character. Yesterday, police obtained new video. It shows Moore walking through a Publix grocery store parking lot. Police say they do not suspect foul play and ask anyone with information to call the Lexington Police Department. Coming up, if you were running for office, what would you rather have? An endorsement from President Trump or $100 million to spend on your campaign? That answer when the record continues.
If they tell you I'm a traitor, it's the truth. I betrayed my country. Did I cause harm? Yes. I sacrificed people. I deserve my fate. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't hesitate.
Honey, Mortgage Bunny 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Bunny 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
Summer is coming fast. Get your best body now with Sono Bello. Just one visit is all it takes to permanently remove stubborn fat.
I went from this to this in just one visit.
Our micro laser technology transforms your body.
My shirts were extra large. Now I'm wearing a bikini.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews and is America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Call now for your personalized consultation. That's over a $250 value. Free. Call Sono Bello today.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's all-American customer service team is standing by.
Relay gives us visibility into not just the amount of money we have, but the work that it's doing, and it gives us something to build toward.
It's a game changer for me. Over time with Relay, it made everything much easier.
Thousands on their feet. The Stars and Stripes kick off the day's World Cup action as Pulisic leads the U.S. against Australia. Can you believe it? Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
Sensitive mouth and gums? Ever heard of Closest mouthwash? Your dentist and hygienist have. They know Closest is ultra gentle for sensitive mouths with non-burning mouthwashes that freshen breath, improve gum health, and strengthen teeth. Closest, the gentle mouthwash for sensitive mouths.
How was school today? It was good. They want to cast me as the lead in school play.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Are you gonna do it?
I don't know.
You okay?
Do you want to talk about it, Daddy?
Yeah.
Were you expecting lower interest rates with Jerome Powell no longer the Fed chairman? Well, if you were, you're going to have to wait longer.
The committee decided to maintain the target range for the Fed funds rate at 3.5% to 3.75%. Economic activity is expanding at a solid pace, despite elevated uncertainty that owes in part to the conflict in the Middle East.
That was the new Federal Reserve Chairman, Kevin Warsh. A short time ago, he led his first Federal Reserve interest rate meeting. Last month, he replaced Jerome Powell. Fed officials did signal a possible rate hike, not a cut, this year. That's due to inflation and sure to make the president unhappy if it goes up. So what did the Fed's interest rate decision do to the markets? The Dow, which had reached an all-time intraday record, closed down 500 points. The NASDAQ down 350 points, and the S&P 500 down nearly 100 points. Yeah, the White House is slamming a new political ad.
Hi, Donald. It's me, George Conway. I cost you $88 million, and I've only just gotten started. But the only thing your name is going to be left on when I'm done with you is the orange jumpsuit you're going to have to wear in prison. And you see that building back there? That's where we're going to hold your third and final impeachment trial. The one that's going to put you away for good.
That's George Conway, ex-husband of former counselor President Trump, Kelly Ann Conway. George Conway is running for Congress in New York. The $88 million Conway references the money Trump was ordered to pay for defamation in the E. Jean Carroll civil trial. Conway had encouraged Carroll to take legal action against Trump. The White House has responded to this ad, quote, lightweight George Conway is a stupid person's idea of a smart person. His severe and debilitating disease, known as Trump derangement syndrome, has melted his brain and made him crazy in the head, end quote. By the way, Conway is trailing in the polls. Meanwhile, last night, Trump-backed candidates faced a big test in Georgia. First, the Republican runoff for Georgia governor. Billionaire and healthcare tycoon Rick Jackson defeated Georgia's Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. Jones, who was endorsed by President Trump, lost by 6 points. Jackson did not have the endorsement, but he had the cash. He spent more than $100 million out of his own pocket on his campaign.
I'm the only candidate who doesn't owe a thing to the political establishment. I don't care what special interests want, how much they beg, how much they give me. I can't be bought, and I won't back down.
In the general election in November, Jackson will take on former Atlanta mayor and former senior advisor for public engagement under President Biden, Keisha Lance Bottoms. And despite Trump endorsing Jackson's opponent, President Trump is happy about Jackson's win. He said, quote, "Congratulations to Rick Jackson, who very successfully campaigned on being Trump and won. He will be your next governor of Georgia. Can't wait," end quote. Trump did have an endorsement win in the United States Senate runoff. Congressman Mike Collins defeated former college football coach Derek Dooley. The win was by a whopping 12 points. So now Collins will take on incumbent Senator Jon Ossoff in the general election. Collins says he's ready for a fight.
I know what it's like to take Georgia values of hard work, honesty, integrity, and a solutions-based approach to Washington, D.C. to get things done. Jon Ossoff doesn't. We need more business people in Washington who know how to get things done, and that's exactly what I've done in the 2 short years I've been up there.
No sooner was the primary race called that Ossoff got out with an ad against Collins.
His rich daddy, a former congressman and career politician himself, handed Mike the keys to a company with dozens of employees, making multimillionaire Mike richer while real truckers did the actual work. Maybe that's why Trump likes him so much.
CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me, and White House and Washington reporter for Politico Daniel Lippman joins me. Daniel, I think it's safe to say that George Conway doesn't like President Trump.
Yeah, no, this is someone that Trump was going to actually put in a top Justice Department job.
Solicitor General.
Solicitor General, yeah. And so he was next in line, and then there was that infamous fighting between, kind of Kellyanne and George and with their kids, because one of their kids, Claudia Conway, didn't like Trump. And so lots of media coverage then. But I have to say that the White House is punching down when they are responding to someone who has, as you pointed out, is dipping in the polls. How does that serve the White House's interest? How does that get more?
He's sort of low-hanging fruit, though. I mean, and it's like this is sort of a grudge match between the two.
He's a fruit for sure. Look, he was one of the most revered conservative lawyers by reputation, had worked against the Clintons and all those scandals.
I don't know where he
started. He was a
go-to
conservative lawyer. At least that was the perception on the Hill.
Didn't he co-found the Federalist Society?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, he has all the credentials. And for him to now be like this left-wing woke agitator, it does look like he's mentally deranged. It does. It just doesn't. You can't match these two parts. You can be mad at your wife while you're out. Look, being married can make some people crazy. I get it. But I'm fortunate I haven't had this problem.
No,
neither
but your wife
you,
has.
and neither have you.
But your wife has.
My wife has. That's
yeah.
true. So, but the point is like, how does he square this? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, he's part of that old crew of Republicans who are some of the Bush Republicans who are saying, "Hey, this is the party we don't recognize
He wasn't really a Bush
anymore."
Republican. He was supposed to be actually a real conservative. But what you realize for most of these people, it was much more about their ego and their standing in this town than it was about the ideology they supposedly supported, so much so that they could support now woke policies if it hurts Trump.
Well, okay, that was a fun discussion because we all know where George Conway is going and what motivates him. Now let me turn to the Georgia race, which actually could be very important because it could flip the Senate if the Republican wins or if the Democrat wins. Ossoff, if he retains his seat, that's a win in the Democratic category. Is Ossoff at risk in Georgia?
Not that much. He's raised a ton of money. This is someone that Democrats are going to ensure has a really good chance of winning because they see him as a top candidate in 2028. This is someone who he's a former person who worked in the media, and so he used to create documentaries, and so he knows the power of a narrative. He literally created a video that was like 5 minutes long, looking about corruption in Washington, and it was not a normal campaign video. It was almost like a Ken Burns mini documentary. And so he is seen as someone who is connecting to a lot of the Democratic base, where he's not just saying what's wrong. He's not imitating Trump like Gavin Newsom. He's actually has this positive message of kind of Obama-esque.
Is he 2028? And while I ask you that, Matt, is that J.D. Vance has a book out, and usually it's almost like everyone who comes out with a book is all of a sudden, is basically, testing the waters. He's got his. It's called "Finding My Way Back to Faith." Came out yesterday.
Communion, I think. He's a convert to Catholicism, and I haven't read the book yet, but apparently tells his faith story, his journey. I don't know whether J.D. Vance is running for president or
How do you find the time to write that book? I mean, he's vice president of the United States.
I'll tell you how.
Okay.
He's actually, I think, the thinking about what he wants to say and how he wants to say it. For unusual for most politicians, I think he actually gives that a lot of time and thought. My guess is that writing a book for him was cathartic, and he probably enjoyed the process because he likes the intellectual part of it. Most politicians, that part of it, just hand me my speech that someone else wrote, just hand it to me so I can get it.
He's very cerebral that way, but he's still got to find the time. I mean, I'm just.
What's interesting, with John Ossoff, he writes most of his own speeches. I was talking to
what are you? Are you like his booster?
I'm not.
What's going on here?
This is the analysis, but he told one fellow senator that he spent 20 hours writing his speech. And
ridiculous. So he spent 15 hours on his hair. Look, this guy, John Ossoff.
That was mean. What has Ossoff done to you?
John Ossoff, look, they got it a little bit easy in Georgia, right? We had this crazy election in 2020. I won't go into all the ways in which I think it was crazy.
I don't want any more troubles.
And I think Georgia has kind of sprung back to be lean Republican, okay? Not a landslide Republican state, but a lean Republican state. If Mike Collins can show that John Ossoff votes the same way that the far left votes in the Senate, and he does, and takes away this mirage that he's kind of like a southern, more moderate version of the woke Socialist Democratic Party, he's got actually a very decent chance to win.
All right. Well, I'm going to take the last word on. We're still waiting to find out who won the mayor's race here in this town.
Of course. Wow. Why don't we just say Washington, D.C. and California should go back to like third grade math?
Actually, it's like New York City. It's we have a Democratic Socialist who's, I think, in the lead. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
Just remember the delay is all on purpose.
Matt Schlapp, Daniel Lippman, always nice to see both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, an important travel alert from someone you might recognize.
I'm Ambassador Herschel Walker. I have an important message for Americans visiting or living in the Bahamas.
So what's going on in the Bahamas? That one, the record continues.
O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website.
There's a reason the wealthy don't keep all their money in one place. We work hard our entire lives to build wealth for retirement. If your retirement dropped 30% tomorrow, would you be ready? Or would you just have to wait and hope it comes back? The last thing any of us wants is to watch our retirement accounts shrink every time Wall Street panics, the dollar drops, or global uncertainty rises. That's why so many successful Americans turn to gold to help protect their retirement. And Preserve Gold is the only precious metals company I trust and recommend. Let me be frank, gold is not for everybody. And I do not give financial advice, but I do urge you to get my free wealth protection guide from Preserve Gold and learn about a special offer to receive up to $20,000 in free gold and silver. Education is power.
Text Newsmax to 50505.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed. And you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Steak is for dads, grill dads, tongue-snapping dads, united by their love of steak. His perfect gift is waiting, plus 8 free burgers. Get it in time for Father's Day at omahasteaks.com.
The first time I experienced vertigo, the room was spinning, like I was in a clothes dryer. Then I started taking Lipo Balance Support. Its ingredients are clinically shown to help reduce dizziness and spinning. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Now to some much-needed lighter news. First, it was the Irish who took over Boston. I can say that. My mother's 100% Irish. And many who came here to the United States just after or just before the potato famine in the 1800s. And now it's another population taking over Boston, the Scottish. That's right. Fans of Scotland's soccer team have been taking over bars. That's not all. They're also causing a beer shortage in Boston. According to a local news outlet, the beer company Samuel Adams ran out of their iconic lager at their Boston bar. The company said that from Thursday to Saturday, the Scots drank 4 times as much lager than they sell during long holiday weekends like 4th of July. On Saturday, the bar even had to order an emergency delivery to keep up with the demand. Several local bars have also reported Scottish fans drinking them dry. What do the locals think about the Scots drinking up all their beer?
They deep, man, and they could drink too. What? Are you kidding me, man? They must don't got no water over there in Scotland. After they're gone, I'm one person cleaning up after them, man, and it ain't that bad. They came, conducted themselves, man, with class, dignity, man, and they like our city.
On Friday, Scotland plays its next World Cup game. They take on Morocco. Hopefully, the city is stocked up, getting ready. And in today's world, everything is happening so fast, our heads spin. And with all the news, how do we bundle it so that we get it all to you? Here's an idea, our Soundbite Shuffle.
I need to warn you about some serious dangers associated with renting jet skis and small watercrafts and swimming at beaches where jet skis and small watercrafts are being operated in shallow waters.
I am frankly kind of a conspiracy theory on the Epstein stuff, and that story says that that's one of the things that's true is that some people called me a conspiracy theory on the Epstein stuff.
Called you a conspiracy
and I love
theorist.
Susie, but absolutely, she thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist on the Epstein stuff.
He made a terrible mistake. He made a terrible mistake for himself, his legacy, and for the country. He had said that he would not run again.
I'm the boss. Let's have a cigarette.
No.
You still did. No. Hey, Georgia. When? No. Last night.
Good.
By the way, that was Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who stopped smoking. Meanwhile, earlier today at the G7, some sound bites from President Trump on the Iran deal.
We have sanctions which will never let them rebuild. They would have no money. They would be in poverty. The 91 million people would starve. So something will happen as soon as they behave. When they behave, we're going to let that go. We're going to have to.
There's some element to this where you send the vice president. If it works out, great, you look like a genius for sending him. And if it doesn't work out, it's the vice president's
I
fault.
like that idea, sure. What? This way, if it works out, I'm going to take the credit. If it doesn't work out, I'm blaming J.D. You better be careful, J.D. He's going to turn his plane around and get the hell out of here. Yeah, I like that idea. I think it's a good idea. President Trump has said that he is willing to send the finalized text of the deal to Congress.
Pennsylvania Republican member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and a combat veteran who served in the 82nd Airborne Division during the First Gulf War and was awarded the Bronze Star. Senator Dave McCormick joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well. All right. Well, I'm sure you have some thoughts on this. Is just a memorandum of understanding, devil's in the details, but everyone's talking about it. So your thoughts so far?
Well, I'll separate two things. I think the military campaign that led up to this moment, I think we've done a masterful job of damaging significantly their military capability, putting economic pressure on them. I applaud the president for getting them to the negotiating table, and I don't think that would have happened without his leadership. The MOU, I'm just digesting. I'm not entirely sure I've seen the final version, but I've got a number of questions about it. And so we'll have to see how that plays out. I think if it has the two things the president's talked about, I think we're in good shape. One thing is that there can be no path to a nuclear weapon or not giving up the enriched uranium. So that's going to be negotiated in the next 60 days. That has to happen for this to be successful. And the second thing was the president's words that you have to pay per performance. You can't lift the sanctions or give them real economic relief on the sanctions until they take tangible steps towards eliminating that nuclear capability. I think opening up the Strait by lifting the blockade, that makes good sense. The blockade was put in place because of the efforts of Iran in the Strait. But I think the sanctions need to stay in place until we see the Iranians do the things that they promised to do. And listen, this is a regime that lies time and again, so we've got to treat it with skepticism until we see real action.
Being a good American, I'm hoping for the best, with this. But I have some questions about it too. But the two things that seem to be missing from it that I wonder about is what about our good friends, the allies, the Israelis? Because there's no, who knows what what Iran is going to do. They already supply the Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah. I've walked those tunnels between Hezbollah and Lebanon. It's really wicked. And then the other thing is that in early January, there were those protests, and a lot of people were gunning down. The numbers 5,000 to 20,000. I don't know the number. Did we promise the protesters anything?
Well, listen, I think there's been no stronger ally to Israel than the United States. We've fought side by side. The Israeli military has performed masterfully, and I think the people that I know in Israel and the friends I have applaud the leadership of President Trump. I don't think there's been a stronger friend to Israel. But the United States really needed to negotiate this next step in terms of the resolution of this conflict, and I think the president was wise to lead the way on that. And America's going to stand strong, and I'm confident the president's going to be a strong voice and ultimately is going to accomplish the goals he said one way or the other. And I think keeping the pressure on Iran is absolutely critical to do that. And in terms of the protesters in Iran, the best thing we can possibly do is continue to put pressure on the Iranian regime. The Persian people, it's a great society, a great culture that's been run by radicals for 50 years. We've taken out 3 layers of radicals. We now have what appears to be a real negotiation underway, and the best path to prosperity is hopefully a resolution of this MOU and a peace deal that Iran gives up their nuclear weapons. We'll have to see.
And it's always better. Look, I think it's always good, even if the memorandum of understanding is not meeting everybody's expectations. I think it's a good idea that we're talking because we got 60 days to try to work things out. And hopefully any of the disagreements can be, and that they'll keep their word, but nobody trusts them. Anyway, Senator Dave McCormick, thank you, sir.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Coming up, he was caught by DNA from pizza. Now this serial killer will be eating prison food forever. That when the record continues.
Have you ever thought of getting a walk-in tub for you or someone you love? Now is a great time to take a look at getting a Safe Step walk-in tub.
With Safe Step's standard heated seat and new fast fill faucet, you can enjoy a nice warm bath up to 20% faster. And the convenient touchpad control is right at your fingertips.
Each tub comes standard with a dual hydrotherapy system. The 10 water jets can help increase mobility, relieve pain, boost energy, and improve sleep, while the MicroSoothe advanced air therapy system oxygenates and softens skin.
Safe Step walk-in tubs are built to maximize safety so you can stay in your home and enjoy the comforts of bathing again.
So call now for more information and a free no-obligation consultation.
When you call today, you'll also receive our limited time offer. Don't wait to enjoy safer bathing. Call 1-800-296-0431.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McCormick Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McCormick Chevrolet.
Healthy aging support starts here with the innovative nitric oxide science pioneered by Human, supporting your body from the heart out through circulation, blood flow, blood pressure, and energy. Results you can feel, science you can trust. Get started today at human.com.
This is not Viagra. It's Rose Sparks. Here are the facts. Rose Sparks improves function, but unlike Viagra, it's a dual-action formula that dissolves under your tongue. Care our patients can trust. Prescribed online for your discretion and for your convenience. Rose Sparks for men. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks to see if you qualify.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
My dad has never been in better shape. He had a stroke and passed away. He had a life insurance policy. Ethos.com. In 10 minutes, you can be covered with life insurance.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
A serial killer faces the music. Today, Long Island serial killer Rex Heuermann was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Heuermann pled guilty in April to killing 7 women, and he admitted to the murder of an eighth woman he was never charged with killing. Today, Heuermann heard emotional statements by relatives of his victims. One of the victims' aunts said he, quote, was not a fearsome predator, but rather a cowardly opportunist, end quote. Now, outside the courthouse, the daughter of Megan Waterman, one of the 8 women that he murdered, said this.
This has been a long day coming, and from this day forward, stop saying his name, stop putting his face everywhere. Put the girl's face, put their names, and make it known that we are the ones who live on for them. Rex will never matter, and he is nothing to us, and it should be nothing to any of you.
Heuermann gave a brief statement in court. Here's what he said.
There are no words I can say. I am responsible for what was said in this room today. The words I would say have no meaning.
The judge in the case also spoke to Heuermann.
Mr. Heuermann, as Mr. Tierney said, I know that you're sorry that you got caught. I assume that you're sorry for what you've done to your wife and children. Are you a little bit sorry for what you did to these poor innocent women? 8 women that you strangled to death, at least 8 that we know of. Are you at least a little bit sorry for that? Yes?
Yes, I am.
You know what? You've been described as a very big man. But you're a disgusting and despicable small man, if you're a man at all. And you're a coward.
Attorney Gloria Allred joins me. Gloria, nice to see you. It's been a long time since we've spoken.
Yes.
Gloria, what do you say to these victims and the families after a hearing like this and at this point? What do you say to them?
Well, first, that I'm very proud of them, Greta. I'm honored to represent them. That I think they did a wonderful job. Most importantly, they did honor to the murder victims, their loved ones who were taken from them. Thank you for playing Liliana's short statement there at the press conference afterwards. Liliana was only 3 years old when her mother was murdered. And, you know, we have photos of her when she was just a little girl with her mommy, and you could just see how much her mother, Megan Waterman, loved her. And also that I was very proud of Elizabeth Meserve, who is who was the aunt of Megan Waterman. And there you see her in the photo with the red hair. And she spoke very powerfully when she gave her victim impact statement. And I might add, I'm so glad you're showing Elizabeth, Greta, because Elizabeth became the guardian of Liliana right there, and she raised her. And what a wonderful person Elizabeth is, and a very big activist, and she wants to change the law because Rex Herman, prefer to call him the defendant, she calls him the prisoner, he participated in a documentary by Peacock in which Herman's wife, Asa, and daughter, Victoria, participated. And reportedly, they were provided with $1 million from that documentary. I said in my statement in the press conference today that Victoria, the defendant's daughter, said, did you think of her, these women as somebody's daughter when you murdered them? She said that to her father. And she said her father said, I didn't think of them as human. And that is just horrifying. Of course, if a man thinks of a woman as a sex object, but not a human being, then she's more at risk. Our daughters are at risk of being harmed, of being raped, of being tortured, of being murdered, as these poor innocent women murder victims were. So Elizabeth would like to change the law so that spouses of murder victims or members of the family cannot profit from the murders, the crimes of their spouses. I think that's a very worthy cause, and I'm very proud of Elizabeth that she wants to share, take her sorrow and her rage at the loss of her niece, the mother of Liliana, and turn it into something positive for others in the future. I mean, these victims are left really with no compensation for the loss that they suffered and what they endured for so many decades. I'm so proud of them because they wouldn't give up. They didn't want their loved ones to be forgotten. They didn't want them to be ignored. They didn't want to suffer in silence. They wanted to give them a voice, and they wanted justice. And today, they got as much justice as the criminal justice system can provide. Herman is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 3 of the victims, and for a number of the other victims, murder in the second degree, 25 years to life, all served consecutively. So that's as much as can be provided. And of course, Greta, there's never true justice if someone's been murdered, you can't bring them back. But this is very, very important outcome. And I want to give credit to my clients, who are the majority of the family members of the victims, and the courage they have shown and their persistence for so many years.
Gloria, thank you. It's always nice to talk to you, and you do represent your clients. You're good. You're great. You've done them a wonderful service, and I've watched it for years. You're also tough to follow as a lawyer. Anyway, coming up, thank you, Gloria. Thank you. Coming up, what is a $100 or 100 tennis ball salute? Who gets that? Stand by when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higbee from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric. It helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Sensitive mouth and gums? Ever heard of Closest mouthwash? Your dentist and hygienist have. They know Closest is ultra gentle for sensitive mouths with non-burning mouthwashes that freshen breath, improve gum health, and strengthen teeth. Closest, the gentle mouthwash for sensitive mouths.
Honey, Mortgage Bunny 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Bunny 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Roofmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free roof tune-up with your Roofmax restoration.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sonobella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobella a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's All-American customer service team is standing by.
It's a big week for the NYPD. Tomorrow, police will be watching over a big parade for the Knicks, who won the NBA championship, as you know, everybody knows. But there is another ceremony involving the NYPD that we want to show you. This one involves NYPD dogs. These 4 police canines are retiring. These courageous pups were honored with a salute. The salute involved 100 tennis balls. The 4 dogs are named Hugh, Ralphie, Stevie, and Yogi. They all worked in counterterrorism, but now they can relax as they head into retirement. Thank you for your service to the dogs. And don't forget, I have a new podcast called Greta While You Like It. It's different. My recent one is with, ready for this, Vanilla Ice. You can subscribe now. It's free on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or newsmax.com/listen. Thank you for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is up next. Stay with Newsmax.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.